The NCAA tournament is in full swing, and we have another locked on bracket breakdown as the number 6 seed TCU Horned Frogs beats 11 seed Arizona State 72-70 in a thriller on Friday night. I'm Isaac Shaden. We are joined now by the host of Locked On Horned Frogs, Mr. Steven Simcox. And Simcox, what a close for TCU to pull off this victory that, I got to be honest, for the majority of the game, felt like Arizona State had it in hand. And we get that game winner from Jacoby Coles. Beautiful floater in the lane. What did it take to close out this victory?
Yeah, it looked dire at times. I mean, they just kind of hung in there defensively in the second half after a really rough first half, even though a lot of that was just Arizona State kept hitting threes. But they hung around. Eventually the team started getting some better looks. Mike Miles kept them in it for the most part. And yeah, really impressed with Mike's decision-making there. He gets doubled. He kicks it to Jacoby, and instead of just pulling up for the three, he puts it on the deck and hits the floater. So big-time win. I think you saw their experience sort of shine in this one because even though it looked like they were probably going to lose through a lot of that game, they never really got rattled and just kind of hung around until they could finally take control at the end.
I think that experience you talked about is a very important thing. We have talked before about the Big 12 and being curious of how the teams coming out of conference play would respond. Mm-hmm. And I thought the gauntlet of the Big 12 really showed up in this one in the tenacity and grit that Jamie Dixon's team showed in winning. How do you feel that the Big 12 prepared them for a game just like this?
Well, I mean, the reality of this group is they're just not a great shooting team. So they go through droughts. They had that early lead. I think they're at 15-4, and then Arizona State fired back, and it really took them a while to get their footing under them. But for Jamie Dixon teams in general and for this TCU group, it really comes back to, can you string together stops? And once they were able to do that in the second half, and the game became more manageable. But, yeah, I mean, they see so many good teams in the Big 12. I think Arizona State – is super athletic. I mean, Bobby Hurley has a much better squad than I thought on the surface when they snuck in the tournament there. But that didn't really, intimidate them or rattle them. They were just able to kind of hang in there and eventually win out with some clutch plays.
We already touched on Mike Miles a little bit, but I don't think there are enough words we can say about him and his performance tonight. Just doing everything, but beyond his ability to score. What does it say about him as a team leader that he trusted his teammate Coles on that final play to go out and make the game-winning basket?
It was a cool full circle moment. I mean, he said after the game he learned from last year, Arizona blitzed him on a pick and roll like that last season, and he didn't get rid of the ball, was looking for a foul, didn't get the call, and so the game went into overtime. Yeah, he's had tremendous growth. I mean, Mike is a super interesting player. I said this after the game, like he didn't have anything to prove, but this was such a legacy performance for him, gritting out the knee injury, finding a way to score so many points. And he's not a guy that's like compiled a ton of stats because he's only been at TCU for 3 years. Like you're not going to find him on the top 10 list of a lot of these categories, but I think you can make the argument he's the best player that's ever stepped on campus with the winning that he's had and just the clutch moments. And how he makes his teammates better. And there was no better example than, the finish of the game tonight, getting into Jacoby and letting him go to work in that late game situation.
Another one of the most important players on this roster is Damien Baugh, who, let's be honest, for the majority of the game was essentially an offensive no-show. And then second half winds up with 11 points, had a couple threes in those important go-ahead free throws with 34 seconds left. What do you like about his mental capability to stay locked in, that even though he's struggling offensively, just stayed connected, kept going, and eventually helped put this team over the top?
I say this is a compliment, Isaac. Nobody is more confident in Damien Baugh than Damien Baugh. Like he is just a dude that does not get fazed by missed shots or bad passes. And it's kind of up and down with him. He'll throw a great pass and he'll turn the ball over a couple possessions later. Fans sometimes get frustrated with him. But one thing that has been true about him in his career is he's not afraid of big moments, and he's hit a lot of big shots at TCU. That corner three was huge. He stepped up there at the free throw line and looked really comfortable with about 30 seconds left. So you have to have guys like that on your team to survive and advance that just, keep firing those bullets even when it's not going in.
Steven, there was that game-tying three that rattled around and bounced around. I want to ask you how many heart attacks you had before it finally rifled through the net.
Oh man, there were a few. There were so many swings in that game. DJ Horn hits that three, he makes a great play to tie it up. Jacoby's game winner. I was waiting out that desperation heave too because there was still time on the clock. So it was really back and forth. Not great for for the cardiac system, but that's March, man. That's what it is.
It is indeed an advance they do where the Horned Frogs now will play Gonzaga on Sunday. As you begin, I know I'm getting to this immediately in the aftermath of the game, so you haven't formulated many thoughts yet. But what are your initial thoughts as you look ahead to the matchup with Gonzaga?
Well, obviously, I mean, the glaring mismatch is just what do they do with Drew Timme without Eddie Lampkin in the middle? Xavier Cork, he's kind of really struggling right now to stay on the floor, getting in some foul trouble. So that's going to be a problem. But I think a fascinating aspect of this game is TCU. I've said it, they're a defensive team, but they're not great in the half court. So they really want to run and get out in transition. I know Gonzaga likes to play at a fast pace as well. So I expect, an up and down game. But obviously, like Gonzaga is the blue blood of the blue blood in the sport. So good opportunity for the Frogs. I mean, I think they've seen offensive firepower in the Big 12, but this is a team that can really shoot the ball. So similar to tonight, you just kind of have to weather those storms and hope that you have a chance at the end of the game.
For more on the TCU Horned Frogs, make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Horned Frogs. And for a full view of the bracket and all the action, subscribe to Locked On College Basketball. Both of these shows are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.